right? And I want to always let you all know, be honest, be vulnerable, be open to ask questions, give feedback. Anything that you think about that you may think that you know that you're not sure of, talk about it. Let's get through it. Let's break it down. Let's rightly divide it, okay? So that we get understanding. By the grace of God, I've been, most of my job, even when I do counseling, by His grace, I'm either dealing with people who coming out of divorce, about to go into divorce, okay? And surprisingly enough, a lot of them even been to other counselors, okay? Qualified counselors, okay? And the thing they've learned when they've dealt with me is they realize it's more spiritual than they thought. I thought I can take the 10 principles of what I thought a relationship is, and we was going to be successful, and we was going to be good. I mean, you know, you can Google that stuff. So information doesn't lead to transformation without application. Information does not lead to what? Without what? Application. So I'm giving you the principles of the Spirit so you can come into the application, right? Because if you don't understand the spirit of it, it doesn't allow you to trust enough of the information to put in place the application for the transformation. The first thing, we're going to start with the order, and then we're going to talk about the process of escape, and then we're going to talk about the redemptive responses. I'm going to go pretty quickly because this is an intensive, but I want you to write down things and you're going to go back and study it, all right? Because these are going to be key points. Today, every day, every week is going to be key. But today is going to be truly key because this is also going to break your excuse for divorce. Okay, all right? It's going to teach you why when you go to a mature leader, he had to help you understand the mind of God by what you said yes to. Okay? So I'm going to break that down tonight and really help you understand the extension principle of what your confession in saying I do really entails and means. Amen? All right. Number one, we're going to start with some scriptures I'm going to paraphrase, but you can go back and read them. All right? We're going to understand God is the God of order. God is the God of what? Order. Romans 13:1. Let every soul be subjected to a higher powers, and for there is no power but of God. The power that be are ordered by God. The powers that be are ordered by God. Okay? So number one, I want everybody to understand that God has established order. Who's established it? Okay, so we're not establishing our own order. That's why 2 males can't be together and 2 females can't be together. Who set it up? God did. It's not subjective. Okay, so God is the God of order, and His authority breeds in the origination of what He established from the foundations of the world. Right. So God is the source of order, power, legal, lawful, delegated right. Okay. So when we're operating by God's power, we're establishing His divine order, okay? God has blessed you with Himself. The God in you, as a Christian, you have power, you have authority. That authority puts you in divine order so it can properly function, so you can have the authority of that order, all right? So I want y'all to understand the 4 responsibilities of order in all of life: government, church, family, and as individuals. You having self-government over your own self, all right? So there is order. There is what? There is order. As believers, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here for you to be a believer, you have to come to some sense of divine order. All right? And so always remember, God has established these processes of order. We don't establish them ourselves. God has established them. So we can't change them around based on some situational issue or circumstantial issue. Right? In that order, God has established men to assume responsibility to lead. Okay? Today we're talking about roles and responsibilities first. We're going to run through that first. Okay? So whose responsibility is to lead? Men. A man's responsibility is to lead, not the woman. That doesn't mean that the woman doesn't have significance. Okay? But leadership, the leadership role is for the man. Okay? It's for the man, okay? Whatever a man's arise and assume that responsibility, usually he's going to come into an assassination of undermining and usually just a lot of pushback, okay? Because there's powers that be that's trying to go against that authority, that's trying to go against that establishment of foundational authority, okay? So that's positional authority. That's what? If God has set it in order, that's positional authority, okay? If you have a title, if you're a parent, you have positional authority over your children. Whatever title you have at your job, you have a positional authority. A man has positional authority over his house and over those who are in his house, okay? And I'm going to actually, through this, you should see how it got off, okay? You should see how it got off, all right? So men must assume responsibility, okay? And in that accumulation of responsibility, he also has to learn to be spiritually aligned so he can handle the pressures that come with that, okay? There are pressures that come with that, okay? So the principle of headship, 1 Corinthians 11:3, the head of every man is what? Christ. And the head of every woman is the man. They didn't say God. That doesn't mean she don't worship God. But what did they say? The man. I know we don't like these scriptures. These are the ones we usually we hurry up and pass over. We don't want to hear that right now. Okay? The reason why you don't want to hear that, or not saying you, people, it's hard to take in, is because you've seen the illegitimate embryonic function of a not ready man. Okay? When you see this in proper order, you honor the positional authority, and it's easy to submit to that man because it's no different from what God says. That makes sense? So the rebellion is not coming from the divine order. The rebellion is coming from preference order. And because we have more preference order than principled order, it's hard to honor and respect what God has established. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like we don't realize, but we don't respect the divine order because we've allowed the preference order to reestablish what we feel that we've assumed ourselves, because we don't understand it, to take ownership and the misplacement of order. Okay, so we got to put things back in order, because when things are not in order, everything goes into chaos. All right. So men must assume responsibility to lead, and then take the principle of headship. The head of every man is Christ. That's why you never get someone who's not submitted to Christ. It's not personal. It's not what? So that means we're not talking about someone and they're a good guy. Forget all of that. It's not about that. Remember, we're dealing with real principalities and powers. We're dealing with establishing authorities. It's not personal. Okay? It's not about people's feelings. It's about the responsibility. Do you have the tools to assume the responsibility? Does that make sense? And because we don't understand that, that's why today, especially in this generation, we see the potential in men. And usually you're telling men more about their potential than they know about themselves. So you're trying to assign them a destiny that they haven't even assigned to themselves. Danger, danger, danger. Don't ever assign a man a potential that he haven't assigned to himself. It doesn't mean you can't see the good in someone. It doesn't mean you can't see the potential in someone, okay? And I'm going to help you to understand why. It doesn't mean that the man got to have everything figured out. I didn't say that. But I can't assign potential to you. This is why. When I get in there, I'm going to expect you to submit to the assignment that I gave you. And so now we got frustration. Because my assumption for you, I wanted more for you than you even realize for your own self. Okay? It doesn't work. It leads to frustration. It's better to wait and not commit premature of that principle, and don't waste your coffee. Premature of that principle, don't rush. What are you rushing for? Allow that person to learn to be provoked in their own destiny and hope. It doesn't mean that, how many people go through a lot of things? How many of you been through a lot of things? Okay, it's not saying that, I just feel like they don't know. I ever feel like they just don't know. I just need to help them. Okay, that's not the way you need to help though. You don't help them by trying to make them. You don't help them by committing to them premature of them knowing who they are. That's not your responsibility. If you want to help as a believer, as an evangelist, because every believer has an evangelistic expression, okay? Every believer has a what? Evangelistic expression. So every believer has an evangelistic expression. But you don't help, you can be evangelistic to them. That's that provoking principle. How many of y'all heard me talk about that? Okay, that's what I mean, provoking. But even that expression needs maturity, okay? Which means I'm going to communicate type of things and bring pictures to you. What does that look like? Airplane. Okay, good. What do we do with airplanes? We fly. If you're a teacher, I've been tested like that. What do you see? I see a chair. All right, that was funny. So you give context clues. You say, oh, Jesus, he don't get it. It's your purpose. Stop telling them. Let them figure it out. Because the kingdom of God is discovered through wisdom. And if you're not in discovery, it's already showing where your heart is. Okay? God leaves a security clearance for those who love him to see like him. God leaves a what? Security clearance. He leaves their security clearances that God doesn't allow people to see. You're blind until you pass the security clearance. Through that heart security clearance, you start to see. So you start to say. You start seeing what you say, Jeremiah. You start seeing what you start saying what you see. Okay? Or seeing what you say and say what you see. All right? How many of y'all tracking with me? All right. So headship means submission to Jesus Christ, to know, follow him. Also, assume responsibility for leadership. Okay? Leadership means to have direction and purpose, taking the initiative, setting the personal example that inspires. Okay? Awareness of needs and concerns of wife and children. Okay? And protection from destructive influences. Okay? So headship is a part of God's design and creation. Wrong concepts of headship is thinking women are inferior, okay? Male chauvinism, thinking that women are less spiritually gifted, okay? Thinking that women are less valuable, okay? So thinking that society thinks that male is more dominant, but in the wrong way, wrong sense, okay? Okay, so that's a wrong concept of a woman, okay? Thinking that you lord over her, all right? And you got to be careful. If you come from different cultures, you got to definitely make sure that's not a default in you, okay? Most cultures, people don't realize they're hardwired to that in that type of stuff, okay? I've nipped more of that in the bud than if I was giving you some examples, and people don't even know that they do it, okay? So if you come through culture, and if you have somebody who have a type of culture, you got to make sure that they love Christ more than their culture, okay? Because if you don't check that culture, and that is not saying culture is always bad. Baby, if we go to this family reunion, you like this type of chicken and this type of gumbo and this type of fufu. I don't know what you want to eat. I don't mind that culture. But when you talking to me and you want to let that go loose, that ain't gonna go too well with you. Okay? All right. So you got to make sure that they understand the balance of using their culture, because it don't work in this realm right here, brother. All right? Or even sister. Okay? So we got to make sure our culturistic views are not imposing on Christ's inspiration, right? They should never impose on Christ's inspiration, okay? And if somebody don't have that conviction where they don't know if they will allow that to happen, you need to make sure that it's concrete, okay? Sweetheart, how do you think about this? Okay, glad you think about that, but how do you react if something did go wrong? Okay, is your finger coming up in my face? How foolish are you gonna call me? In fact, do you believe in cursing your wife out? Okay, you see, you got to know these things. Okay, out of the abundance of the mouth, what? Don't ever allow people to say, it's not about meaning well. Didn't I say that before? It's not about what? Right, they just mean well. Meaning well and doing well are two different things. You got to get out of thinking that you're just going to approve people because they mean well. Let them mean well. Everybody means well, all right? But it's not just meaning well. I have to get from meaning well to learning how to do it well, all right? And you got to know what are the priorities or what are the essential principles that needs to be done well, not just meaning well, all right? Because what we want people to do is accept us in meaning well as if that's a qualification of getting it done, okay? How many know people abuse people all the time in meaning well? How many know people fail all the time in meaning well? So I'm not saying that it's not that they don't mean well. I'm saying we just need to make sure if we're going to do this, we need to get to a place where we can learn how to do well. Amen? Okay, so what is headship? Headship is a position of spiritual authority. And this is on your sheets. It is a position of responsibility. It's a role of leadership and in relationship. And it's a manifestation of the headship of Christ. Okay? It's a manifestation of the headship of Christ. Right? So now we're going to talk about the principle of bonding. Okay? The principle of bonding. Well, Pastor, you didn't talk about the women. We're going to get into that. Slow down. Right? Principle of bonding. Ephesians 5:31 says, these two shall become one what? One flesh. That's important. It's one what? Flesh. Don't ever forget that. One flesh. Okay? Even though you're going to share in grace, the Bible says you're going to share in grace, you become one flesh. All right? Okay. So God's law of bonding is activated when two people turn their hearts towards one another with desire and longing, okay? And then they leave and then they cleave. They do what? They leave and then they cleave. They leave to let go, leave behind, forsake all conflicting all attachments, okay? They forsaken all conflicting attachments, okay? So men and women must let go of all emotional, sexual attachments so they can cleave, men to their wife, okay, and wives can submit to their husbands, okay. Cleave, to glue together, adhere or join self to one another, all right. And when they leave, they're leaving from they're leaving the dependence into independence from parents and interdependence into their spouses, okay. They're leaving from the dependence from their parents into independence from their parents, into interdependence into their spouses, okay? And that's why the Bible says, this explains, Genesis 2:24, this explains why man should leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife, right? Genesis 2:18, I know I'm moving along, okay? Because I want to really hit the high points and you can connect them as we go, all right? And the Lord said, it's not good for man to be alone. Okay, we just dealt with the man's responsibility. Okay, now he's saying it's not good for this man that understands his what? Responsibility. It's not good for that man that he gave the responsibility to. It's not good for that man to be alone. Which means it is good for some men to be alone. This is where we have the issue. Because we're not leaving a lot of men long enough to be alone with God to know who they are in Him. And when they, watch this, because right, we're talking about roles, so I'm on the men right now, all right? And when the man doesn't know himself, he now makes you his God, okay? When he makes you his God, let me tell you what's going to happen. It sounds good. It sounds really good. He going to make me his God? Woo! Come on, baby, make me your God. Okay. Let me tell you something about yourself, women, if you didn't know. You don't even want a man like that. Oh, amen. You already know. Y'all hear that, men? They don't even want a man like that. You would think they want a man that worships them. Okay? That's what a lot of men think. And so what happens is, when we don't know ourselves, this is the mistake. You start living for the woman. You start living for the family. And when that is the thing that's making you, guess what it's going to do also? It's going to break you. Because a woman will give you a desire. She'll say, ooh, that was... Do y'all understand how men think? I don't even like my wife watching a TV show. And she looking at somebody else's house. I'm like, girl, what you acting like? You better look at this house. What's wrong with you? To a man, why are you saying it look good, that good? Did you see how men think? Like, you're looking at that little, you like that pool? You know what a man thinking? How many jobs I need to get that pool? He wants to be needed. We're gonna get to that. And so when you're mesmerized, and please don't smile in another man's face like that. Uh-oh, Jesus. Please be careful how you do that, because maybe wimpy men won't notice, but men who know themselves, they notice. They're going to be in the gym right next week. Baby, what's going on? Baby. Go watch his last 5 YouTube channels. See what he was looking at. Because he was trying to figure out, why is it that she amused by this? But it seems like you go back to usually to your default of what that is. Okay? So now you're always trying to figure out how to keep it spicy. Okay? How do I get her attention again? Okay? You used to give me a lot of attention right there, but now we going to work and we tired, and it shifts. Okay, so you start believing lies about the communication, not thinking that you're just in a different season. Does it make sense? But let me stay on point. When I say the men, and I gotta watch this time. The men have to know themselves in God, so they can be secure, they can be locked in, and they're not moved by every wind and wave of women, even when you just could like something. You wasn't taking it that deep. You could have been just stating something. But let me tell you something, that's gonna blow up. Because that man gonna be working all his life trying to, and he'll do everything, and then when everything don't work, guess who he get mad at? You. So now you become the beating bag because you don't appreciate him. You know what? And you're figuring, where does that come from? How don't I what? And in your mind, you're really thinking like, I thought we were doing what we're supposed to do to get to where we got to go. What happened? He lost sight of what he stayed at that altar for, to start worshiping you. That's why I always say, I can tell, you give me 5 minutes of people at the altar, I'll tell you how far they're going to go. Give me 5 minutes, I can listen, I'll tell you how far they're going to go. Because I can hear grace. I can hear, but I can also hear if they're submissive wrong. And the woman don't catch the cues. Because she's looking at thinking she's going to help. That's her nature to what? Help. So she like, hey, that's what I'm supposed to do. No, baby, not like that. Not like that. I'm going to say this early. You're going to hear me say this again. Women do not nurture husbands. Okay? They nurture children. So women, that's ingrained in you. You are a nurturer by design. But you are not called to nurture a husband. That doesn't mean you're not called to support him. That doesn't mean you can't cry with him. That doesn't mean you can't hear his deepest regrets and fears and fears and phobias. But ultimately, he got to stand up and assume responsibility, because you are not there to raise him up. No, that's different from when he knows his position, but sometimes he gets weak. But it's not raising him into a position. He knows the position. He just got weak. Does that make sense? That's different between I know my position and I've just been hit a lot and I'm just down for a moment. But I know my position. Like I'm established in who I'm supposed to be. Okay? So you're not leading me into who I'm supposed to be. I know that I'm just kind of overwhelmed with all the responsibility. Okay? That's different from I'm always needing you to help me in my weakness. You know I didn't have this, and you know I didn't have that, and you know I didn't have this, and you know I didn't come from that, and you know I didn't have this. And women don't catch the cues because you automatically think, well, I'm supposed to help him. No, you're not like that. Okay? And so this is the greatest misinterpretation of that I do that we go through. Okay? Because once I go through extension principle, people see that and say, oh, I didn't know. So now I got to take the ladder because I didn't know it was like that. You have to make sure that that man understands the responsibility of what he's saying yes to. And watch this. That doesn't mean that responsibility, there has to be core competence. Excuse me. The greater responsibility is the position. It's the greatest responsibility is what? What did we learn last week? It's positional. Positional. So it's not progressive yet. It's positional. How are you establishing your position? All right. So we want to make sure that he's establishing his position so that he knows and have confidence and he have clarity and he have competence in at least the groundwork of the Christ, so that even if he needs to figure something out, he knows to go to God.